Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee for this Thursday, May the 2nd, 2024. I'll ask Mr. Clerk for a call to order.
Excellent. We'll conduct the roll call here. Councillor Palladino. Not here. Councillor Parker. Here. Thank you. Councillor Carlson, Deputy Mayor Carlson, pardon me. Present. Present, thank you. He is online, we heard that. And Acting Mayor Campbell.
Present. Excellent.
The committee is here. We have quorum, 3 of 4. Several of your colleagues have joined us.
Very good. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people who past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also the home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. First off, we have the consent agenda. Mr. Clerk, is there anything we need to know about the consent agenda?
I think actually the adoption of the agenda first.
My apologies. The adoption of the, that's what we need to know. We need to know what's in order. Okay, adoption of the agenda. Is there something that needs to be added?
Certainly. We received one piece of correspondence late last night. We can add it to the agenda if committee would like. And also for the cycling lanes presentation, administration had 2 slides that were indicated to be updated once data was received, which was received after the community conversations event late last week. And those slides are ready. They will be presented today. We could recess for 3 minutes and update the agenda to include that piece of correspondence. The PowerPoint will be updated this evening.
Are there any anybody opposed to that? Thank you. I see none, so we'll just pause for a few minutes and then we'll just reset that. Be right back. Okay.
We got a motion.
The motion from I guess will be from Councillor Parker to I guess the motion would be to amend the adoption of the agenda. Okay. As amended. Yep. As amended. Question. Question's been called. All in favor? Okay.
3 minutes. We'll
yep. 3 minutes. Don't go anywhere. All right, that was fast. We're back. Okay. This time we will do the consent agenda from Councillor Parker. Once again, be it resolved that the minutes of the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee held on April the 4th, 2024 be approved and the Chair and City Clerk designate be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee receive as information the 2024-05-02 status of initiatives. Councillor Parker.
Question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That is unanimous. All right, we will begin with presentations. I'll call Environment Lethbridge to the floor. Kathleen Shepard, Executive.
Thank you for having me. I do have a presentation somewhere. There it is. So I'm happy to be here today to up to December 31st, 2023. Next slide, please. Just as a bit of background for your information, from our current strategic plan, we have 4 strategic priorities, which are community collaboration, learning and action, engagement with local government, and operational stability. We currently have 3 focus areas, which are waste reduction, green energy, and climate resilience. Next slide, please. We do, of course, track a number of different metrics for our activities every year. This is for the year 2023. So one of our priorities is working in partnership with organizations and businesses throughout the community. We tracked 83 different partnerships to deliver our programs in 2023. We offered 27 different workshops and events. Those range in size from small single presenter workshops through to events like CD Saturday, which is one of our flagship events. All told, we had just over 900 people attend our different events. We were able to reach out to 16 different businesses, primarily through CD Saturday and through our Living Cities program, which I'll talk about in a minute. We also maintain a number of web and social media online platforms, as you do. And altogether, we had over 22,000 different connections through that. So that's a combination of hits on our website, connections on our social media pages, hits through our electronic newsletter. We also do our best to support different city policy initiatives. Through the Municipal Development Plan, we have identified 12 different areas that relate directly to the work we do. And so we were able to contribute to the success of those different initiatives throughout the year. And we also contribute to different policy initiatives, plan reviews, things like that as they come up through the year. And then we also offer programs like Reuse Rendezvous, that kind of thing. And so we had over 5,800 people participate in our different Environment Lethbridge programs. Next slide, please. Obviously, it's important to us that we're making an impact on the community. In your package, you'll find a detailed list of all of our programs broken down by our different strategic priorities. I just wanted to highlight 2 here for you today. The first is Reuse Rendezvous. This is a program we took over from the city in 2015. It's probably our biggest program. We offered 2 events in 2023 and had over 770 households contribute items, and more than 6,500 people access our online map, which is our primary way of determining how many people are engaging with the event. It's difficult to tell how many things exchange hands during Reuse Rendezvous, but we do some exit surveys with the households that participate, and so doing a bit of estimating around that, we believe there's probably about 1,800 boxes of small items, 1,400 mid-size items, so those are sort of microwave type size, and then 550 large items, which would be your furniture, your exercise equipment, that kind of thing. The second program I want to highlight is our Living Cities project. This is a project we delivered in partnership with a national organization called Green Communities Canada, but also with the Dillon School of Business at the University, City Parks, Helen Schuler Nature Center, to produce a couple of items. One is a policy pathway around ways to enhance and increase green infrastructure in Lethbridge. So green infrastructure is things like using bioswales, using plants instead of things like riprap to control stormwater, rain gardens, different things like that. As a result of this project, we were able to expand the Pollinator Cafe project into the Warehouse District, and we also have 6 new floating islands that will be going into Canyon Crest Park in June. We kind of ran out of good weather in the fall, otherwise they would have gone in last year. Next slide, please. Community collaboration is a key priority for us. One of the initiatives we started last year is the Lethbridge Urban Nature and Environment Roundtable, which provides a forum for different organizations who are focused on sustainability and environmental work, along with relevant representatives from city departments to share information and collaborate on opportunities. There's lots going on in the city, but sometimes those opportunities to connect and sort of lift the boat higher collectively were missing. So we meet twice a year through this roundtable as an opportunity to share that work. As I mentioned, we partner with a whole host of different organizations across the community organizations, both the university and the college, departments at the city, and then also local businesses as well. And then in the past year, we have also been able to make a number of national and provincial partnerships. And this has resulted in some funding that has come to Environment Lethbridge, as well as quite a lot of in-kind professional development opportunities to increase our knowledge and resources. Next slide, please. We also work quite closely with the City of Lethbridge across a number of different departments, and primarily with the Waste and Environment Department. So one of our key initiatives this year was contributing a significant amount of time to the Climate Adaptation Strategy and Action Plan. But we also supported different initiatives from the Parks Master Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, River Valley Trail Strategy, the Natural Asset Inventory, the Clean Energy Improvement Program, and Waste Reduction Week. Next slide, please. One of our priorities is to use the funding we get from the City of Lethbridge to leverage other funds. These are funds that come to Lethbridge from outside of the community, so we're trying to make that pot as big as possible. In the fiscal year ended July 31st, 2023, we secured just under $100,000 of non-city funding. So for every dollar we get from the city, we're leveraging an additional $1.52. Next slide, please. Coming up for this current year, we will be redoing our strategic plan as our current plan is coming to a close. We, of course, plan to continue with our core programs, Reuse Rendezvous, CD Saturday, our Wasteless website, and Environment Week. And as far as new priorities go, we're looking at ways we can get engaged with neighborhoods more directly, particularly around some of the green infrastructure work, and also around water conservation, which I think everyone has on top of their minds as a key priority for this year. Next slide, please. Great, and I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shepherd. Really remarkable how much you guys do. I know every year for Reuse Rendezvous, my wife puts me out on the front lawn just so far. Oh, Mark's out in the front. Are there any other members of the audience that would like to make comments or talk? I understand we have two pre-registered people. One is Joan McNeil, if you would like to come up, make your presentation. Please be reminded that you have 5 minutes, please. And just for the record, if you could state your name as well.
Hi, my name is Joan McNeil. I grew up in Alberta and I have lived in Lethbridge for 35 years. Thank you for your presentation, Kathleen. I've always been a staunch environmentalist, and that's why I chose a career in hydrogeology. I was a member of SAGE way back when it was called the Southern Alberta Environment Group. Sustainability is the focus of all Environment Lethbridge's initiatives, and most of their initiatives are about climate change. 6 of the 7 groups they partner with, external groups, that list tackling climate change as their main goal. City of Lethbridge initiatives also focus on tackling climate change, including, to name a few, the Parks Master Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, the Natural Asset Inventory, the Energy Conservation Master Plan and Strategy, the Climate Adaptation Strategy and Action Plan, and the review of the Municipal Development Plan. Where did this focus on tackling climate change come from? Did our mayor and councillors decide, based on input from we, the people who elected them, that climate change was the most important issue affecting people in the city of Lethbridge? No, they did not. The United Nations Climate Change Agenda, Agenda 21, was released at the 1992 Earth Summit in Rio. The Rio Declaration states that a lack of scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason for postponing action, that all citizens must cooperate and participate in eliminating unsustainable patterns of production and consumption, and appropriate demographic policies must be promoted, whatever that means. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, was instrumental in drafting Agenda 21. The climate change agenda is imposed on municipalities through a complex web of public-private partnerships, of which the FCM is a big one. To quote from the FCM website, FCM looks to develop long-lasting corporate partnerships. As a corporate partner, you'll get increased visibility with a wide and diverse selection of municipalities across Canada. The 1994 FCM Municipal Primer tells local municipalities how they will focus on fighting climate change. Since that time, many millions of dollars have flowed through the FCM in the form of loans, grants, education, and training to encourage municipalities to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. One of the FCM's favorite programs is the Green Municipal Fund, which provides funds to help municipalities with their transformation to net zero. Our mayor and councillors will be attending the FCM conference and trade show in Calgary from June 6th to 9th. Two of the featured topics are enhancing climate resilience and developing strategic partnerships. Some of the grant money Environment Lethbridge uses to educate us about the need to reduce our carbon footprint probably comes from the Municipal Development Fund. In 2021, our previous Mayor and Council approved Bylaw 6296, the Clean Energy Improvement Tax bylaw. With this bylaw, the city got permission to borrow up to $5 million from the Green Municipal Fund to finance approved eligible clean energy improvements to be paid back over 25 years at up to 6% interest. Then, in October of 2023, our current Mayor and Council removed the cap on borrowing. So I really want to ask the Mayor and Council, does that mean that there is no limit on how much we can borrow under this program? P3 climate change grant programs generally extol the value of helping the most vulnerable, but many of our most vulnerable in Lethbridge don't have homes to improve. Another program funded by the FCM through the Green Municipal Fund is the Partners for Climate Protection Program, or PCP. Lethbridge signed on to the voluntary PCP program in 2007. The goals of the PCP come straight out of the 1992 UNCED Convention on Climate Change. Lethbridge has completed the first two milestones in the program. Milestone 1 was to create a baseline emissions inventory. They achieved Milestone 2 in 2020 when the councillors voted to adopt a 40% reduction from 2018 levels by 2030. Thank you, Mayor Hagan, for voting against this resolution. Lethbridge City Administration staff, who make up far more of our salary budget than do the mayor and councillors, are now busy working on milestones 3 and 4, which are to develop and implement a local climate action plan. The next goal will be net zero by 2050. These greenhouse gas reduction targets will most certainly not be easy to achieve. They will impose very serious hardships on the people of Lethbridge, lowering our quality of life, restricting our rights and freedoms, and making it increasingly difficult to support our families. On the Partners for Climate Protection website, it is clearly stated that the FCM and the Government of Canada accept no responsibility for the recommendations in the program. Are the mayor and councillors willing to accept personal liability for adopting and pursuing a plan that will cause serious damage to our community? Should our decisions and funds be governed by UN-directed public-private partnerships, or should they be determined by what is in the best interests of the people? What mechanisms should the city's infrastructure committee use to guarantee that community voices are heard and prioritized over the goals of the PPPs? How can the city's infrastructure committee prioritize the needs of local residents rather than primarily aligning with the goals of NGOs and public-private partnerships? And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next speaker, and we'll hold off for questions until that. We have another registered speaker. Thank you, Ms. McNeil. Next up is Sachi Gabriel Gold. If you can come and state your name, please, for the record. And again, 5 minutes, please. We have a lot of people speaking today, so we need to keep to that 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm really nervous. And this is not my comfort zone. There's things I would rather be doing, but I think this is really important. And I'm one of those people that's very much aware of the environment, and yes, we do need to take care of our planet. However, there's a cost to what's going on right here, and what I am very concerned about is that non-elected bureaucrats, some of them aren't even from Canada, appear to be making decisions and implementing our domestic policies here, as Joan has just described, through all of this grant money. And while it may be enticing to go out and get grant money, these monies come with strings attached, which means that there's an agenda there to, like, you have to put in bike lanes, you have to do this, you have to do that. And these may not always be things that are in the best interest of the majority of the citizens of Lethbridge. And who's going to decide that? Because I don't feel like we were adequately, in a meaningful way, consulted about what's going on. When I first moved here in the 80s, Lethbridge had nice wide streets that are like nostrils. The city could breathe for the efficient and graceful and easy movement of traffic in and out. Like it comes in, breath in, and it goes out. Breath out with a whoosh. And things like fire trucks, buses, delivery trucks, big things can move in and out of the city with grace and ease and efficiency. And the way things are now, it's like a nightmare trying to drive downtown. What were nice 4-lane streets, 2 lanes in each direction, are now reduced to 1 lane with forced turns.
Chair,
Pardon me?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think we're getting away from our topic here. It's the environmental report.
This is all related to the environment because the environment is being used as an excuse to barricade streets and put up green zones and things like this. This is definitely all related. Do you not agree or see this?
All right, just continue on.
And as Joan said, there's cost to this, like the Agenda 2030, which I saw that Mr. Butler, who was at this point applying for a contest for 15-minute cities and won some kind of a grant of a large amount of funds, stated in there that by 2030, he wanted Lethbridge to be at a net zero, carbon net zero. This means, it means drastic changes that people are not going to be able to drive cars. Things like this will be happening. And this is definitely going to impact all kinds of our life here. Anyway, this is what I want to say. I'm not a politician. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a mom and I'm a grandma, and I'm very concerned about what's happening in our city. And I hope you can hear, I'm speaking from my heart here. And I hope you can feel that. And I want to speak to your hearts and ask you to really look at this and have a look and think about it. Is this really the right thing to be doing? I improve the environment as much as I can myself. Everybody I know, like we recycle and we garden and we do this and that to help the environment. But what's going on here is much more than that, and it feels very coercive, and that the people haven't been fully empowered and consulted in that. And having foreign entities making decisions about what's happening in our country, which is what's going on or appears to be going on here, is actually illegal. It's a form of treason. And that's all I want to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time. We like to keep decorum in the council chambers, so thank you. I will open it up for questions from my colleagues. Oh, sorry. Is there anybody else from the audience? I'm sorry, that wants to speak. Step forward and give us your name. And again, 5 minutes, please.
I'm surprised to be given 5 minutes. I just wanted to ask a question. I had a correspondence with Ryan Westerton, and I was on the schedule to speak for 5 minutes on this climate action stuff. And then Ryan wrote to me and said, no, we've changed the agenda. It's canceled. Whatever is going to happen is on 27 June. And I asked him for some explanation of why is what I wanted to talk about being canceled and put off to 27 June. And you can hear that there's a lot of people here who've been talking about the role of the United Nations behind the scenes and all of this emphasis on climate change, which doesn't seem to come really from an internal discussion of we the people of Lethbridge. I'll really try to be less than 5 minutes, but I did ask 2 council members here and let them know, like, what's going on with the United Nations? Remember, I came down and asked you that, and you kind of took a blank on it. Well, now you get a feeling for why we're curious about, it's a big thing. I don't see a UN sign on the building here. Remember Yan Yi hog plant? and the city council made a deal with Yanyi Hog Plant in Taiwan to come and set up 5,000 kill plant, 5,000 hogs a day. And then we, the people of Lethbridge, were found, well, we want to talk to the city government about it, but they've already made obligations and are a proponent of the hog plant project, and they're already contracted. And we got to the NMAX Center with, there were so many people upset about this and wanting to comment on this. And to me, it shows when the city government starts to make deals. This was a very public deal, but it doesn't feel like this is very public, what is really going on. Joan did a magnificent job. I haven't seen a presentation like this since I've lived here. Like, her presentation was so detailed and so original. And I could see by the way you were looking around that these are things that you're not probably aware of yourselves. But this problem of trying to speak to a government that has its main decision-making, say with Davos, like the federal government, well, we don't really need to worry about Parliament much. Davos is where the action is. And Davos is very connected, to the United Nations. And where's this 15-minute city stuff coming from? It's obviously a worldwide plan of some sort. Like, who's coordinating it all? And so this idea that we lose our governments who make deals with the people with the money, with the big players, with the influence, with the contracts, with the access to all kinds of favors and perks for the insiders who go along with it, we're pretty suspicious. Thank you.
Please hold the applause in the council chambers. That's just standard, please. Sorry, what was, we didn't get your name. Just for the record, thank you.
Yes. My name is Tony Hall.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody else who wants to address the council chambers today? Stand up, state your name. Again, 5 minutes, please.
My name is Kelty Baird. Thank you for taking the time. I didn't actually intend to come and speak on this motion today. You'll be up and talking to you again. I just wanted to express my gratitude to Environment Lethbridge and Kathleen for all the work that they do in our community. I am a local business owner in the community, and I really appreciate all the programs that Environment Lethbridge has and the care that they take with our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Someone else, step forward, state your name, please.
Hi, my name's Roger Watkins. I'm a fairly new resident, a year and a half ago to Lethbridge. These issues concern me. I'm a former worker in the nuclear field. I came from Ontario working at Darlington Nuclear Plant, and I've written a letter previous to the mayor concerning the 15-minute cities and possible issues concerning the implementation of that, either through permitry, fines, license plates, or however, barriers and so on and so forth, and how that would be implemented. And I never got any answers back on that. But I'm just wondering, I'd just like to make a few statements here. I don't think any of the council members are experts on climate science. I don't think they've considered SMRs, which are the highest density form of energy generation, which would eliminate a huge amount of CO2 if that's the concern. And in addition to that, they are, you don't need additional transmission lines. You utilize the additional transmission lines. I recognize we do a lot of our energy comes from the natural gas sector right now, but I think that's something you guys should really be concerned about. I don't think the UN really gives much credit to that. Then I think about the quantitative evidence about how much CO2 will actually be reduced by implementing bike lanes. What's the cost to businesses? And I think about your authority as a municipality to work with the United Nations, non-binding entities, that really are subverting the federal and provincial governments. I've written 2 letters today to the Municipal Affairs Minister and to the Energy Minister in the province of Alberta, asking them to look at the authority of municipalities to implement agreements with organizations like the United Nations, and to see whether or not, like Calgary just tried to pass laws to allow voting for non-citizens within their municipal elections. So these are issues that the Alberta government is going to take a look at, and I hope they look at those 2 letters that trying to see whether you guys have the authority to operate with globalist UN non-binding entities. And I also wonder, and just a question, because I always hear about these corporations of cities being corporations, and whether each and every one of you has signed an oath to office to those who actually voted for you. Are you representing the people of Lethbridge, or are you representing the organization of the city of Lethbridge? I think we have to understand that. I'd like to see that document where you've all signed an oath to represent the people of Lethbridge rather than the United Nations and non-binding entities that we never voted for. You guys are here to serve, and I give you credit, and I thank you for your service to the people of Lethbridge. But I ask you to think about those things, think outside the box, maybe take a look at small modular reactors and other forms of energy resources that might be far more significant in reducing and allowing the people of Lethbridge to have energy efficient, reliable energy that keeps the grid stable, where you don't have blackouts and so on and so forth, because I think that would be a far greater utilization of the future of nuclear power and high density energy and high efficiency energy. So I thank you for your consideration for these issues, and I'm concerned for the people of Lethbridge. Like, how are these things going to be implemented? How are you going to enforce 15-minute cities? Are there going to be permits? Are there going to be license plates or things put on our cars or cameras with pictures taken out of us? How are you going to manipulate the movements of the citizens and the freedoms of the citizens of Lethbridge and Canada and Alberta to control our behaviors? And I'm very concerned that totalitarian dictatorial governments that are being leading the United Nations and looking to municipalities like yourselves to subvert the authority of federal and provincial governments and your responsibility to represent the people of Lethbridge. So thank you for your service, and I pray that you'll listen to the people and the concerns we have here and utilize strategies that are efficient, like small modular reactors as a...
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it. Please, people, I'd really appreciate it if it's just decorum, and that's a tradition in this council that we don't applaud. Okay, thank you very much. And just a reminder that we're basically dealing with an information report from Environment Canada here today. Environment Canada. That's a weather thing that I used to do. Has nothing to do with. So just keep that in mind. Also, so with that in mind, do we have any other speakers that wants to come forward? Seeing none, I will open the floor up to other questions from our councillors. Maybe first off, Ms. Shepherd, did you want to respond to anything that you've heard here today?
I think the only thing I would say is Environment Lethbridge receives a small amount of federal government funding that comes from the Eco Action Community Fund, which we use to engage youth in learning about water.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Crowson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd, for the presentation, for the information on what Environment Lethbridge has been working on. You mentioned you have a strategic plan that's coming, so you may be doing different things in the future. So you're not, you don't know precisely what you'll be working on, but does your organization have any hopes for the future? So do you have sort of a game plan of what you think, and what is the process for how you're going to develop your strategic plan?
Yeah, so we've been working on our new strategic plan since the beginning of the year, kind of breaking it into some bite-sized pieces. at the moment, so we're kind of leading up to probably some internal work around what we want our priorities to be and that kind of thing. I think things that are arising, definitely water conservation is top of mind, as I'm sure it's top of mind for all of you. Also thinking about ways we can engage with the community differently. So I think I can safely say we're very good at putting on events and workshops and inviting people to come to us, and sort of looking at are there ways we can go out into the community more and engage people on the ground a bit more. So those are kind of broad strokes, but as you say, the strategic plan won't be finalized until our AGM in November.
And overall, how many staff do you have? How many volunteers do you have? Like you are a membership-based organization, so you reflect the community through your membership. How active is your membership?
Yeah, so currently we have myself as the staff person, so we're a small team. Volunteers kind of shift a bit depending on what kind of programs we're offering. We probably have a couple dozen core volunteers, including our board and for some of our different events and things like that. And then our membership, coming out of COVID, that was something we really felt, and I know from talking to other organizations, they've really felt as well that there's been a real pullback on people getting memberships and things and participating in that same way, and that's partly what's driving my thinking about how do we engage with people a little bit differently, because it seems like people are sort of shifting how they want to engage in the community, and we want to respond to that.
And as part of your shift, you said you're going to work more with neighborhoods. I know you have a plan in June to reach out to neighborhoods. We have quite a few neighborhood groups. They can definitely reach out to you as well.
Absolutely, and we have some good connections with the umbrella organization for the neighborhoods as well, so hoping to strengthen those connections for sure.
So it's all at the grassroots community based.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from my colleagues? I see none. I just want to iterate that, for what all of the things you've done on this list is pretty remarkable, and also the fact that you're able to leverage the money that you get into extra money, which is quite excellent as well. So I have a resolution from Deputy Mayor Carlson. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee receive the Environment Lethbridge 2022-2023 report on activities as information. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the report, appreciate all the information in it. One thing that I wanted to point out is that Ms. Shepherd did say that they had nearly 6,000 people participate in Environment Lethbridge programs. I think all of those people were there on CD Saturday because the lineups were were awesome. On my behalf, I'd like to thank them for the work they do in our community. It is greatly appreciated. If there's anything further from my colleagues,
I see none.
Then I will call for the vote. Thank you.
Question's been called. All in favor? That passes. Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Up next, we have a report on cycling lanes from Adam Sanamount, Transportation Engineer. Mr. Aman.
Am I on here? Yep, excellent. All right, so make sure this works. It does not. Oh, there we go. Just have to aim it the right way. All right. So coming here today to talk to you about the cycling lanes in Lethbridge, a little bit of the history of where they came from and where they're at right now. So originally we have a number of plans that came into place that directed us towards getting some cycling infrastructure in Lethbridge. We have our municipal development plan with its policies, transportation master plan that was just adopted earlier this year, which also included a few modal split targets where we're trying to get a few more people walking, cycling, and taking transit, going from 90% personal vehicle use down to about 80%, with the other 20% being on the active modes and transit. We have the cycling master plan from 2017 that established a bit of a network that would like to build throughout Lethbridge to make transit a realistic transportation option for people in Lethbridge, giving them another option on how to get around the city. And then that was also informed by different types of cyclists, different classifications of cyclists in the cities for the types of infrastructure we'd need, and a lot of community engagement. We also have the capital improvement program, which was amended to use some of the active transportation grant funding that became available. And the Transportation Master Plan, again, this year is kind of the network that we're looking to in the future. Each one of these should have a functional planning study to direct what can be built. One of those functional planning studies was the 4th Avenue, or the Cycling Corridor Functional Planning Study, which included the 4th Avenue and 7th Street cycling routes, along with a couple along Stafford Drive and the one being built to connect the WT Hill area out to into Memograth Drive. That their functional planning study also included quite a lot of community engagement. And this year just is a little bit of a picture showing how that 4th Avenue and 7th Street cycling infrastructure will connect those future networks identified in the Cycling Master Plan. As we get into the 4th Ave and 7th Street cycling corridors, we see that the construction did result in the loss of some parking, about 6 stalls along 4th Avenue and around 27 overall on 7th Street. And we've got just some of the design in here, and it's getting close to completion. There's still a little bit to finish off on 7th Street to complete the project. Overall costs and funding, so we had 2.9 million in funding available, and it's on track to be a little bit under budget at about 2.8 million. Some of the challenges we've experienced so far include snow clearing and accessibility. Some changes were made to the snow clearing procedures so that it would be a little bit smoother moving forward as we get into more snow events, although hopefully we can wait until fall for that. And then for accessibility, we've done some adjustments. We've increased the overall number of parking stalls for accessible parking stalls in the project area, and we've also removed some of the concrete blocks to make it easier so that people don't have to necessarily step over 2 concrete blocks to get to the sidewalk. Coming into some of the communication and engagement summaries, this is when construction started, there was door-to-door outreach along the corridors, and since the corridor has been opened, there's been a number of calls into 311, and just a quick summary of the sentiment on those calls. A few things that we're going to be doing moving forward is getting into some cycling education. There's going to be a video released either today, I believe, is the first one, and a second one in a week or two, to help both cyclists and drivers to understand a little bit better about how these protected cycling lanes are supposed to work. We've got a bicycle bylaw update that will come sometime over this coming year. We have some CAN bike training that will come to help train some cyclists who are interested in further developing their cycling skills, and then also some continuous outreach and education campaigns. At community conversations, we were asked to talk with the public, and so we talked with the public at the community conversations event and also had a survey up on Get Involved Lethbridge. These here are the new slides that were referenced earlier and the results of that survey that was held on the Get Involved Lethbridge website, and along with some comment themes and comment sentiment summaries. In the end, we're recommending that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that Council direct administration to report back to the committee in 2 years on the downtown bike lane usage and talk about the usage, safety, and other issues that are encountered and any modifications that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Sanama. At this time, I invite members of the public to speak, and I understand there's some registered people. We'll begin with Keelan Schulten, please. If you'd come, you have, again, 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Keelan Schulten. I appreciate you taking the time to hold this meeting today. I'm here to speak in favor of the bike lanes downtown and the expansion of cycling infrastructure in Lethbridge. I know there's been many posts and letters that you've received on this topic, so I will skip over some of the commonly cited benefits for bike lanes around community development, environmental gains, pedestrian safety, and so on. And instead, I'll go a bit more on sort of why I personally value these bike lanes and appreciate that they've been put in place. This is something I can talk for hours about. Most of my friends will roll their eyes at that statement because they've probably had to sit through me doing so. But I'm quite passionate about cycling in the city. And this is also something that my wife likes to tease me about, because not very long ago, I would have been the person sitting in a car bitterly complaining about needing to wait behind cyclists or needing to share the road. Over time, that slowly changed as I became more concerned about the environmental aspect and also in terms of just personal finances, looking for ways to save money in terms of gas prices and cars and so on. So I came to the acceptance that maybe biking is a good thing that makes sense, but still not for me. I still wanted my car. And I still have my car, to be clear, but where I am now, we've sold our second car, so my wife takes the vehicle to work, and my bicycle is my primary way of getting around the city. And at first, that was, like I said, an environmental and financial decision, but I've found so many benefits that I did not anticipate, and a lot of them came around the time that I spend downtown. So that's why I think these are a valuable addition to the Lethbridge downtown. It's something where, in the past, downtown was a place where I would maybe do a quick run to go to the library, but I went many years with the library being the only part of downtown that I saw. But when I was biking, I found more enjoyment in going to new places in the city. And the downtown, of course, has a lot of public art, lots of interesting businesses. There's a lot of things downtown that I found worth looking at. And I attribute a lot of that to spending more time cycling. And that also is why I'm interested in expanding the opportunities for other people to do that. I saw in one of the slides presented, cyclists in town were broken down into different groups, whether they're fearless in terms of bike infrastructure or quite confident, and quite a large group that just isn't comfortable riding with cars. And I'm probably somewhere in between that second and third group. I'm mildly uncomfortable with cars, but I put up with it because I enjoy biking in the city enough. But I'm a whole lot happier going somewhere with protected routes. And so, to me, I see this as both a way for people to safely have an opportunity to get around the city, but also a way to improve the resiliency and the vibrancy of our downtown. I think when you picture a place that you want to spend time in, most people aren't going to be picturing a parking lot or a loud road or something like that. You know, your picturesque, vibrant downtown is generally not filled with a lot of traffic. Now, obviously, there's a balance there. You need to get people downtown from wherever they happen to live. But I think as a way to move our downtown towards a place that can continue growing, especially as the city continues to grow, because there's only so much physical space downtown to put parking. At some point, if we want to continue getting people downtown and experiencing that part of the city, we need to find another way to get them there. And I think bike lanes are an important step in that process. So when I look at this, I see essentially two visions of downtown. We can have what is typically sort of our business as usual approach. We cram in as many cars as we can, and then we accept that we are somewhat at a peak of what downtown can handle in terms of traffic. This is sort of as good as it gets. At some point, people are just going to have to go somewhere else. Or we can have a downtown that has room to grow, room to attract new and interesting businesses and become a place where people want to spend time, not just make a quick trip to get where they're going and then get out as soon as possible so they can go to a big box store with a large parking lot or something to that effect. So I'm hoping as a city we can continue moving towards that more vibrant vision for downtown and for other parts of the city that could use safe cycling infrastructure. And I feel that removing the bike lanes or slowing down on our cycling plan would be a step backwards towards that goal. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Schulten. Our next registered speaker is Katie Aurora. Katie Aurora, is she here? Okay. I do not see her. All right. We'll move on to our next registered speaker. It's Sachi Gabriel Gold. And once again, 5 minutes.
Thank you. I did not even own a car till I was 28. I am a cyclist. I grew up in Toronto, riding bikes all over the city without bike lanes. I have cycled in Halifax, Dartmouth, Edmonton, and Lethbridge without bike lanes. And I have survived. The worst thing was I got dive bombed by a red-winged blackbird that was very territorial one time. The important reason why we decided to buy a car was because I was expecting a baby and I could not see biking to the hospital when I was in labor. Bikes have their use, but we don't need to have bike lanes, in my opinion. And I feel that bike lanes can give cyclists a false sense of security, maybe even a bit of arrogance that they're totally safe and they're not. You still, when you have parallel parking beside the bike lane, you still have to watch out for people opening car doors in your way when you're riding. And on 7th Avenue South, I know there has been a quite nasty, at least one accident with a cyclist and a car at the roundabouts because, and I think that might be because when you're driving on a street without roundabouts, you can see, you have clear vision, but when you're going around a roundabout, your car is pointed. It's not pointed down the street. If you're going west, now all of a sudden your car is pointing north and then west again. And in that time, because some bikes travel very fast, this gentleman managed to get into the roundabout intersection and be hit by the car. Unfortunately, they did not see each other. So these are things like whenever you design something, there's flaws. And the other major concern with bike lanes is the curbs, which I think are unnecessary and give a false sense of security. Again, if there's no cars parked in front of the curb, and even if there are, if there's an accident and somebody has some kind of medical emergency or loses control of their car, they can still drive in there. Whenever you're biking, you have to have your spidey senses out and you have to be looking and listening and paying attention to what you're doing. And those curbs were definitely a hazard for vulnerable people. I spent 2 years wearing a cast on and off, so I had a taste of that. Not very much fun. And if you have to step over something, if you've got crutches or you have a walker or a mom with a stroller, have to lift them up over that curb, and then in the snow not being able to see those curbs. And my own daughter, while carrying her baby into Laurel's baby shop on 7th Street, did trip on that curb and then stumbled and then tripped again on the curb to the sidewalk because you've got one. And if the first one doesn't get you, then there's the other one when it's snowing. Very treacherous. And yeah, she almost fell and down with the baby, was holding it this way, the baby's head would have hit the curb or the sidewalk. And I think this has been a whole misguided and expensive mistake that was thought out only with the safety of cyclists in mind, because maybe now there's more gaps where people can go through, but in the past, you had to walk down to the intersection or an alley to get access to the sidewalk without, going over a curb. And people can easily ride bikes on the roads or the sidewalks, and I have myself for decades. And some of our sidewalks, like downtown, yeah, they're crowded, it's not appropriate. But in other places in the city, there's miles and miles and miles of empty sidewalks. What's more concerning also is that people riding these electric scooters on sidewalks that go extremely fast. And I was standing outside Analog Books talking to some ladies. We nearly got hit by someone whipping by us on one of those scooters. In my neighborhood, the large majority of cyclists ride on the sidewalk and in the back alleys. And they're not kids, they're drug addicts, apparently, I'm guessing. In fact, 90% of the bike traffic in our neighborhood is drug addicts, and you can see them, they're looking over the back fences, looking for stuff to steal so they can support their bad habit. This is unfortunately the residue of the safe consumption site where my neighborhood was very, very strongly adversely affected. And on 7th Avenue South, you can't drive a school bus down 7th Avenue South without going over the curbs. And what if somebody has an emergency where seconds count? Now, you can't get a fire truck down there. How about an ambulance or a police car that's dealing with something urgent? They have to slow down, either go through the alley to go around it or do something else. So seconds count in these situations. And I don't think that bike lanes have been a good solution here.
I need you to wrap up, please.
Okay. The bike lanes on 13th Street, to my mind, are basically underused. And because we have a cold winter, we have strong winds, which make it very unpleasant to be out, I'm grateful to have a car. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next scheduled speaker is Tyler Stewart, and I understand we have that on video, or at least a tape. Is that, okay, Tal?
I would like to express my support for the new downtown bicycle lanes. I have used them frequently since they have been open, as they provide me a safe route to access both my workplace and downtown businesses. I would also like to address some of the criticisms stated by members of City Council and others as to the notion that these new bike lanes should be removed. The first criticism is that, quote-unquote, no one is using them. These bike lanes were first made accessible in late November 2023. There was no promotion or awareness campaign that I saw from the city to advise citizens that they could now be used. However, many people did start using these bike lanes right away, myself included. Our weather patterns in southern Alberta allow year-round cycling, something I have personally been doing for over a decade. The notion that no one will use these bike lanes in winter is a flawed argument. By that kind of logic, we should also rip out baseball fields, as they seem to sit empty most of the winter. Come summer, I am sure we will see many people using these bike lanes on a daily business. The second criticism is that bike lanes have been hurting downtown businesses. While I have not seen the balance sheets of any of these businesses, I do know that the prolonged construction on 7th Street South must have affected their bottom line in some way, and I have empathy for these businesses. However, this disruption to their operations was not solely due to bike lanes being built, but the larger aspect of infrastructure replacement. It is not fair to blame the bike lanes for bigger delays caused by a significant streetscape renewal. Furthermore, there is plenty of research that demonstrates how businesses located along bicycle infrastructure indeed receive a boost to their bottom line over time as they are open and promote new modes of access for customers on bicycles. There are many businesses here in downtown Lethbridge that are excited and supportive of these downtown bike lanes. It is unfair for a few loud voices in opposition to this new cycling infrastructure to dominate the conversation. We know that people will always be louder in their complaints than in their praises. Another criticism is the aspect of infrastructure design that creates issues or difficulties for seniors and those with mobility issues. These are valid criticisms and can be addressed through design modifications. They are not sufficient justification to rip out these new bike lanes. One aspect of this criticism is the loss of parking stalls. This is also a valid criticism, especially along 7th Street South, where a total of 27 parking stalls have been lost between 6th Avenue and 3rd Avenue South. However, the city's park and ride transit terminal more than makes up for that loss, with a total of 293 parking stalls available on a daily basis. It is also a more secure and weather-protected place to park than on the street. Yes, it might require parking a little further away from the business you intend to shop at, but I can offer a simple analogy to help address this issue. When visiting Park Place Mall, it is impossible to park directly in front of the business you want to visit. You must park in a parking lot, walk across that parking lot, and then walk through the mall to access a specific business. Using the park and ride transit terminal to access a business on 7th Street would require about that same amount of walking, or less, from the parking spot to the business. Losing some parking spots on 7th Street South doesn't mean, quote-unquote, there's no parking downtown. It simply means that it is located a little further away. The idea of ripping out these new bike lanes before they've even had the chance to be used in the summer months is foolish and wasteful. Not only would it be a serious case of fiscal imprudence, it would be environmentally irresponsible as well. These are two issues that the current City Council have stated as being important to their mandate and the city's overall health and well-being. It is absolutely critical that City Council make evidence-based decisions. Citing Lethbridge Herald opinion polls and anecdotal statements on social media to justify ripping out new bike lanes is not a valid way to conduct the important work of planning and design for urban infrastructure. The recommendation to keep lanes in place and report back to Council in 2 years after data has been gathered is a smart one. I hope that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee will follow this recommendation. I also hope that more communication in terms of cycling education and awareness will take place, as this was a key recommendation within the city's 2017 Cycling Master Plan. Very little has been done to educate either city cyclists or motorists about safe cycling behavior, and this would go a long way in resolving some of the ongoing conflicts at play in this debate. Thank you for your time. Tyler Stewart, citizen of Lethbridge, Alberta.
Yes.
I was just notified by Councillor Carlson. He was just wondering what's going on, and he didn't hear the audio at all.
Oh.
And so he was just wondering what was happening and all that. So
the audio was verbatim, a letter that has been supplied to us. So you can read it, Councillor Carlson, because we got to read it and hear it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next scheduled speaker is Henriette Plass. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Henriette Plass, and thank you for the opportunity to address this committee today. I live just east of the downtown core, and I travel around Lethbridge by bike, by car, and by foot, and increasingly more by bike. In the past 10 years, I've clocked 8,000 kilometers on my bike, and I don't look like a cyclist because I'm not like, a cyclist, but I love it to get around this town. I'd like to speak to 3 points today, if I could, and there's so many great points presented so far. I'd like to speak to accessibility, to equity, and to community. And if the issue is about accessibility, and it seems like that is where some of the criticism is coming from, there are certainly workable solutions around this. And jurisdictions around the world have figured out how to implement safe and inclusive bike routes that also address the needs for accessibility. And safe cycling infrastructure and accessibility are not mutually exclusive. They can and they do coexist, and there are many communities around the world that have done a really great job about this. And in fact, there's plenty of evidence to show that communities that prioritize safe cycling infrastructure also improve accessibility and equitable transit or transport. So right now, and I've had the opportunity to cycle in the Netherlands, which is a dream, and I'm going again this summer, and it is a dream. And is the current design that we have along 4th Avenue perfect? I'd argue no. Can it be improved? I'd say yes, it can. But there's no reason to pull it out. I think we can address these issues to improve this design, take forward all of the information that we've gathered from the community to ensure that our design going forward addresses the safety of cyclists and also the safety of pedestrians and accessibility. I don't think we need to reinvent the design of safe and effective cycling infrastructure. This certainly exists in several communities around the world. A lot of the heavy lifting of safe, inclusive cycling infrastructure with good accessibility exists. The heavy lifting has been done. Let's copy what these other communities are doing. As for equity, that comes into play here as well. For decades, the design of our urban spaces has largely catered to the needs of those who own personal vehicles. And this, by nature, has excluded a good percentage of our population, which I see increasing as time goes on. There are a lot of people that can't drive for many reasons. We're excluding the youth who can't drive, students who might not be able to afford a vehicle, seniors or people who have medical issues that can't drive. So if we are only catering to car traffic in our cities, we're excluding a vast percentage or a vast portion of our population that needs a more equitable way to travel through our city. And the third thing that I want to comment on is community. When I'm riding my bike, it's a very different experience than when I'm driving my car. Invariably, you meet up with someone or you pass someone in the street, there's a hello, you're stopped at an intersection together, there's a greeting that takes place. There's sucks about this weather, or a cute dog or something. There's an interchange that happens that I think helps to create the vibrant, friendly, welcoming city that we want in Lethbridge. Just last week, I was asked to participate in a roundtable discussion, Imagine Lethbridge, to sort of give some vision to what we want Lethbridge to look like in 25 or 50 years' time. And a big part of that was creating that sense of community, creating something that was environmentally sustainable, so I've just sort of lost myself. But sort of the idea came up more than once that, if we create a community where students or kids are safe and feel secure pedaling to school, like what a great community that would be. So that sort of mostly sums it up, but I've submitted a letter to you as well that also has links to some of these great resources. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll ask if Katie Aurora showed. I know she was on the list to speak. Okay. No Katie Aurora. At this time, I'll ask, is there any other members of the public that want to speak on bicycle lanes? If so, step forward and give your name. Gentleman in the back, standing up. Please state your name for the record. Thanks. Yep. You got 5 minutes.
My name is Virgil Granfield. I live on 13th Street South here. And one of the reasons, probably one of the main reasons that I wanted to come here today is I'm not really a cyclist, but that's the city's fault. My girlfriend's also not a cyclist, and that's the city's fault. 5 years ago, we both bought bicycles, and nice bicycles with a plan to use them more than our vehicle. But because we live on 13th Street South, we've used them once. Because it's absolutely insanely dangerous to use a bicycle on that street. I read in the social media reports and newspaper and so forth somewhere a comment. I hope I'm not being unfair in remembering this wrong, but that Councillor Dodick had said that a reason for backing off on bicycle lanes, one of them was how dangerous 13th Street South is in terms of traffic. I wanted to talk, there's a greater failure in the city and a larger issue that's very much connected to the bicycle lane issue, and that is speed limits in the city. And a kind of catering to the automobile at the expense of all other users of our streets. So I just want to give you quickly just the facts, what I see as a failure, and then future in terms of how this relates to the bicycle lane issue. 13th Street, the city, November 2022, did a speed study on 13th Street South. They found that 73% of people driving on the street are speeding. That 15% of those drivers are driving between speeds of 60 and 110 kilometers per hour. This is during the hours, the peak speeds are 8 o'clock in the morning when kids are going to school only 50 meters away at Fleetwood Bodden School, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they're coming out of school. The average speed there is 55 kilometers per hour, but like I said, there are about 4,000 drivers per day who are driving at between 60 kilometers and 110 kilometers per hour. 4,000 per day just on that one street. There's a problem in terms of speed that there are lots of factors that will affect the safety in terms of speed, of how fast somebody's driving, visibility, etc. The visibility on 13th Street and other streets in the neighborhood is between 19 meters and 30 meters because of bushes, cars, trees, etc. Somebody who's driving at 60 kilometers per hour needs 2.5 seconds before they can register. Somebody coming off of a curb, bicycle, kid, whatever, they need 2.5 seconds in order to see that person and begin to stop. At 60 kilometers per hour, the minimum distance for that is 19 meters, which means somebody coming off the street, off the curb there has a 0% chance of surviving being hit by a vehicle. Somebody driving 60 kilometers per hour needs 86 meters to stop fully. But there's something else that's not really often considered, and that is how speed affects your vision in terms of limits of vision. The faster somebody's driving, the more narrow their field of vision is. Somebody who's driving at 55 kilometers per hour, which is the majority of drivers on a street like 13th Street, their field of vision becomes tunneled so that they can only see the vehicle directly in front of them. So we have a situation where on a street like 13th Street, Councillor Dodick, although I'm completely opposed to the conclusion that he came to in terms of bicycle lanes because 13th Street is unsafe, he's absolutely right in that you can't really think about bicycle lanes in a city like this without also thinking about how dangerous the streets are in terms of speeds and the speeds that people are driving. Now, last year, after getting the report from the city, the study, I approached a member of council, Councillor Middleton Hope, asking for help on the issue. I also approached the city chief of police. They promised a 6-month blitz on 13th Street in order to try to address the speed issue there. The blitz resulted in 45 seconds per day. So that's when the city has decided that yes, we're going to do something with law enforcement to try to address this sort of issue. This is what this is the extent of what we can actually do. What we have to do though is reconsider the larger picture. The city traffic department currently uses what's called the 85th percentile rule for speed limits. The 85th percentile rule, the way that it works out is that the people who are driving the fastest, the 15% that are driving the fastest, they're the ones who set how fast the actual speed limit allowed speed limit in the city is. Okay.
I'm sorry, I need you to wrap this up. You're well past 5 minutes.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Yes.
So what I need when you're considering this issue of the bicycle lanes, what I need for you to consider is also this. The reason that there are not more people out in favor of bicycle lanes, that the reason there are not more bicycle users in the city is because of people like myself and my girlfriend who can't use the streets because of the speed limit problem. If you would address that issue, then if you would think about it in terms of not just the few who are full-time bicyclers, and this is really what they do. You know what they use on 13th Street and streets like it? They use the sidewalk.
I got it.
That's what the bicycle lane is on 13th Street. It's the sidewalk.
Thank you very much.
But there are a lot more people in this city who would be using these bicycle lanes and supporting the bicycle lanes if the city would get serious about the speed limits.
Thank you for your time. I'm sorry.
You receive letters from the trauma surgeons.
I do have to wrap you. I do have to cut you off. I'm sorry.
The school board also sent you a letter asking you to reduce speed limits. You've done nothing about it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Members of the public, anybody else? Lady over here, step forward. Again, please keep it to 5 minutes. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Helen Connolly, and I wanted to comment on the bicycle lanes downtown. I have used them myself, and they've been incredibly helpful in providing a safe passage for me to cycle from my house to the downtown to access businesses down there, make appointments, go shopping, all those kinds of things. So I really appreciate the bicycle paths, and I'm looking forward to them being expanded and completed. The other main comment that I wanted to make was that since the bicycle paths have been implemented, I have now been able to cycle downtown with my daughter, who is 6.5. So before the bicycle lanes were there, I did still cycle downtown, but it was something that I had to be, as a cyclist, very aware of, and I've cycled all my life, and in major cities, in Boston, in Dublin, and I'm very aware as a cyclist. What the bicycle paths have done for me is allowed me to take my daughter downtown by bike, which was something that was completely out of the question for me before the bike lanes were available. So I think that some of the issues that have been raised about in terms of equity and making the downtown accessible for all people, so not just people who own a vehicle, so someone like children or people like children or people who don't own a vehicle can now access the downtown safely, and I'm so grateful for that. And we've cycled downtown multiple times to go shopping, and meet appointments, and it's just been a great experience. So I really appreciate the bicycle lanes. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Someone else wants to speak? Mr. Lear? 5 minutes.
Yep, thank you very much. I'll try and shorten my comments to balance things out for you. So anyways, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to appear today. First, before I get started though, I'd like to convey my condolences to Councillor Palladino, who obviously can't be here today due to loss in the family, and certainly wish him the best and look forward to seeing him again here soon. First of all, let me say that I think we all share the same vision, which is the best possible Lethbridge for the best number of people, for the most number of people. And I'm certain council is doing everything it can at every turn to do the right thing for the city. I don't envy you. But I would say that it seems more and more often city council gets caught up in these controversies, and it might be worth pondering on why is that the case? Is it just a consequence of being part of a growing city, or is there some underlying issues which might prevent us from arriving at good decisions more frequently and more timely? This suggests the consultation process might need some review, and in particular the case of the bicycle paths, it's my recollection, and I could certainly stand to be corrected, but there were only 400 people surveyed prior to these decision being made on these bike paths. That's 0.4% of the population or less. Now, I'm no statistician, but that certainly doesn't sound like a statistically significant number to me. So maybe that's where the problems start to arise, is in our consultation process, because all too often it seems the work that's done by council is to justify the decision making after the fact. And I suggest if we spent more of that time and effort in advance to making sure we're arriving at the right type of decisions and engaging the community, not to shape the outcome, but rather to understand exactly what the sentiments are before we arrive at those decisions, that might help. I don't know. Again, I appreciate your efforts. Glad I'm not in your shoes. So just a couple of quick thoughts. Some of the issues that have come up that I've personally seen that haven't been spoken up too much in the past are risk to pedestrians. And I know my own father suffered an injury tripping over those barriers during the winter. So that's a concern, and I'm not sure any sort of statistical analysis, risk to the city or anything like that has been undertaken in its understanding or in the broad picture of things. Just a couple of quick points on Tyler Stewart's comments. Baseball fields and soccer fields don't require maintenance, so they can sit there all winter at no cost. What a surprise. I would also suggest that there was an inadequate amount of business consultation before this process began. I'm not aware of any business impact analysis. I'm not aware that the city has committed to making whole the businesses who are suffering. And I would point out here, I've collected pages and pages and pages and pages of signatures from citizens who have tended businesses downtown and express their concerns in writing about the impact on their ability to shop and do business in Lethbridge. Lethbridge is a regional commercial center. People don't ride into town on their bicycles to shop. Now, again, I understand it's difficult because you're trying to accommodate the needs of both drivers and bicycle riders. The reality is the downtown area is very small. The vast majority of the city is accessible to bicycles. So again, I don't know how you're going to balance the two, but I know there's also concerns about the safety of that parking facility. Just to go on, last couple of comments. Simple straw poll here. If you look outside, you'll see 50 cars, 2 bicycles. How did everybody get here today? They walked. Okay. Right, so there's 2 bicycles. So bike paths, I'm not sure what the intent is to accomplish, but it's not working today. So finally, the comment has been made that if we remove the bike lanes, somehow we're not going to be seen as progressive. Who are we trying to impress? This is Lethbridge, not San Francisco. Anyway, at the end of the day, the downtown area is a commercial sector. And I think the viability of businesses, if you want to keep what was the phrase, revitalize downtown? I think maybe keeping that sector alive should be our #1 priority. But thank you for your time. Bye now.
Thank you. Who is up next? Gentleman right here. Please, I'm trying to tell you one more time, we don't applaud in this chambers, please. Thank you. State your name, 5 minutes.
I'm Dennis Fitzpatrick. I live in West Lethbridge. I ride downtown all the time to shop and to go coffee and to enjoy it. When these paths were announced, I thought, hey, I've been riding my bicycle since 1957. This is the first time I feel really safe. I've been involved in 4 car accidents and hospitalized twice. These pathways are progressive, they're fun to use, they're recreational, and I love them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? There's a lady on this right over here on the aisle. Yep. Come on ahead. Again, state your name. Give us 5 minutes most, please.
Well, my name is Pat Johnson, and I am the manager of Maritime Travel Now, formerly the owner of Flair Travel. We're on 4th Avenue in the professional building, and we have a medical facility in the professional building, and it is a nightmare watching people struggling to get over that first bump, then onto the curb. People are being dropped off in the alley while their driver goes to find somewhere to park, and they're having to manage to get in on their own. I don't know how many of these people look after or are responsible for people with handicaps or disabilities. I have a husband who has trouble getting over those 2 barriers. I don't oppose the bike lanes at all. I biked in Europe as well, but those barricades on the outside edge, all those posts that are up, those white posts, one gentleman called the city vibrant and beautiful. You stand at the end of 4th Avenue and look west. It's atrocious. It's not attractive. It's not inviting. I don't come into the downtown core to do anything. I come from the west side, I work, I leave, I shop somewhere else. It's just too much of a hassle to deal with what has been put in place, and I question how many people. Are these catering to 1,000 people, 2,000 people? How much was the cost to do this for that number of people? And how much stress and hardship does it cause for our older population? And let me tell you, Lethbridge is getting older. Just look around. I'm sorry, this is a retirement community. Yes, we have lots of people in the university and the college, but they normally go home in the summer, and there's obviously bikers that use it regularly. But my concern as a business, I have people that will try to park. We lost 1 stall. That's 25% of what we had. But they'll phone or they'll go somewhere else. And I really resent that. I worked really hard to build my business, and now I see it. Now I see the city having put up an obstacle, and God forbid getting older and having to navigate that. I also drive a small car. I'm sure most of you drive SUVs or bigger vehicles, but I drive a Honda Civic. When they plow that bike lane, they push the snow onto that barricade or that bumper that's there. I can't open the car door. So what am I supposed to do? Crawl over and get out on the road? Is that, there's so many things that weren't thought of for the general public that were thought of for the biking population. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another member of the public? Right over here on the right.
Hello, I'm Jordana. Thank you for taking my comments. So I'm definitely for the bike lanes. I know it's obviously contentious, and accessibility is definitely a big part to address, but I just think that the bigger thing to look at here is the vision of what we're trying to accomplish with the city, and part of that is just trying to obviously collaborate, work together, but it is like, what legacy do you want to build? Like, yes, we're all getting older, but how do we move forward together? Because we also want to attract other people to the city. It's not just retirement, there's college, there's university. You're trying to bring everybody together, and part of that is how are you drawing people together to become part of a city that the culture is it car centric, or is it bike centric, or is it kind of people centric, and we can all work together? And I'm kind of rambling, but I just feel like it's just a weird thing to just throw everything out because there's just some problems that we need to iterate and figure out together. It's just, to me, it's just like a progressive vision to move together towards bike lanes where everybody's happy too. And things need to be addressed with that. That's all I would say. And I'm really forward for them, so.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Gentleman right there.
Roger Watkins. I'm not for or against bike lanes. I lived in Toronto, which is, this is not Toronto. And they have bike lanes, a lot of bike lanes, a lot of people fought for them, and a lot of people are really happy with them. And Toronto doesn't have nearly as bad a weather as we have here. So I think some of the issues, I think we need to look at solutions. And I thought what the person said on the video, he made some really good points, and he acknowledged the issues that need to be presented and are real issues and obstacles. I think those things are that's what you guys are good at, and I think we're coming here to share some of our ideas with you. I don't think parking lanes are good or bad at all in and of themselves. It depends on how you utilize them. I do think we need to have, like the one gentleman spoke about, facts, studies and whatnot. I think it's important to call other communities, find out whether or not the businesses were impacted. Are there any small businesses, like organizations that actually have done before bike lanes were in those cities? Did it impact the businesses? Call them up, find out from their councils or their organizations whether or not it affected businesses. I think there's definitely good areas for bike lanes. I also think that you need to do studies. Like, you have bike lanes here. Some people say they bike all year round. I don't know how they do that in minus 30 or minus 40 and whatnot. I'd like to know how many people are actually using the bike lanes in the winter compared to the summer. That's data. I'd like to know the age demographic of people who use the bike lanes. I think the young fella who uses the bike lanes, that's fantastic, but I don't think there's an equal demographic usage of bike lanes from the seniors and whatnot. And I think there's some other solutions. I think one of the solutions, I think these that I've been hearing here, is the curbs. I'm on the west side, so I don't know about the curb lanes and whatnot and these curbs, but I think for the safety, I think you could just put white lines there. That would eliminate the whole curb issue, because I think that's ridiculous having curbs that are there. It's just a safety issue, period. You can just have white lines. That eliminates the whole curb issue. The other thing I think you might want to consider is having bike lanes utilized 7 or 8 months of the year, and then November 1st till the end of March, those bike lanes in some areas, maybe right downtown, you can keep them all year, but I think the curb thing is ridiculous, especially with snow plowing, and then the seniors and accessibility issues. But I think you could just use white lines and possibly utilize those bike lanes 8 months of the year, 9 months of the year, some kind of a compromise that helps businesses in the wintertime. And I think the other thing is maybe possibly building some garages, like take an area, if there's an old buildings or whatever, build a parking garage. You're helping better accessibility for the businesses. You're allowing the bike lanes to still exist. And you're allowing the people like the seniors and the elder demographic, which is increasing in the population, and allowing people to come in. That was a good point about Lethbridge being a city hub for people coming in from many areas. That would be a great solution. And I think seniors parking, maybe you can have spots. I see there's tons and tons of disabled parking. that is underutilized. Maybe take some of those spots and make seniors parking spots available. There's lots of other solutions, and I'm not for or against parking or bike lanes, but I think there's other issues. You need to have data and points of fact that are utilized from other people to find out what have been the consequences and benefits or detriments of installing bike lanes. So you can't really make good decisions without facts, and I think that helps you when you make a decision. It gives you data that backs up the validity of the decisions that you make, which is what people want. They want objective criteria that actually speaks to the problems and issues. And I think that there are some issues like the speeding issues and whatnot and so on and so forth, but I don't think the whole city going to 30 kilometers an hour or whatever is the solution to that either. So I thank you guys, but I just ask you guys to utilize the intellectual capability and your desire to serve the people and come up with solutions that are win-win for people rather than not taking into consideration all the aspects, because we're all ideologically driven in many cases. So I appreciate that.
Okay, great. Okay, let's see. Gentleman in the back. Oh. Please keep it to 5 minutes.
Mike McCaig, and I will keep it short. A couple of things. I wasn't planning to come up and talk, but some of the things that have been said made me come. I'm 80 years old. I've been riding a bike since I was 6. But recently I've been moved to e-bikes because of health issues. And I have ridden on the 4th Avenue bike lanes at least 3 or 4 times a week since the day they opened. I live 2 blocks east of the hospital. I'm now able to come downtown and only ride for 2 blocks on a street. The rest of the time I'm riding on 7th Avenue, I'm riding on 4th, and then I go down to the Coolies, I go over to the west side, and I ride all around. And I found this winter that I didn't have any problem with snow removal in the bike lanes because I didn't ride days it was snowing, but by the next day I found that they were quite nicely cleaned up. And I just, the part about stepping over the curbs, I can agree that maybe those new curbs are an addition, but if we're going to worry about taking them out, then the next step is where you take them out of the additional curb, you better look at fixing the curb up onto the sidewalk. Because if stepping over a curb is the issue for a person with disabilities, and I'm sure it is, then there's 2 issues. There's the first curb and there's also the second one. And on 4th Avenue, I think there's only 1 handicap parking spot, and right behind that one you can get up onto the sidewalk easily. The rest of the time you've got to be at an intersection. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Who is next? Over here on the left, on my left, stage left. Miss Amy, okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Amies. I'm the Executive Director of the Business Revitalization Zone in the downtown, and I'm just here this afternoon to clarify the BRZ's position where bike lanes are concerned. The Business Revitalization Zone as an organization is an umbrella and as such represents 500 plus businesses and property owners in the downtown. To say that the BRZ is unequivocally either for or against bike lanes is very, very difficult because of the very varied responses and reactions that we have had from our membership. In addition to the survey that was administered through the city and the BRZ through the community conversations, a couple of my board members did some impromptu surveys, again, just to clarify what we are hearing specifically from the downtown businesses. These folks reached out to 200 individuals. 39 of these folks chose to participate or were available to answer. That's 19.5%. Out of the participants then, 28 were in favor of having bike lanes in Lethbridge, that's 72%. 9 individuals did not support the implementation of any kind of bike lane at all, at 23%. 38% are in favor of the bike lanes and find the current construction and design to be acceptable. And 54% of the individuals spoken to agreed that bike lanes in Lethbridge are a progressive, sustainable, green way to go, but that the design needs alterations and that they have experienced negative impacts on their businesses as a result of the designs. We won't talk too much about the issues because they have been mentioned time and time again, and that's very clear. And just finally, I want to say that the BRZ is committed to any initiative that makes Lethbridge a more progressive, sustainable city, and certainly further is committed to working both with city and with its membership and the community at large in finding solutions that work for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have a few more people that are written down here for speaking. Sean Collier, Cullen? Sean Cullen? Okay. Again, keep it to 5 minutes if you could, please. And off you go.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me out. I live just off of the 7th Avenue bike lane, and I am a huge fan of it. I used it previously to bike to work at the research center, and I will be using it again. And I just want to say, like, as someone who lives in that community where that bike lane is installed, knowing that there's going to be less traffic there because people are discouraged due to the way the bike lane was designed is a really good thing for people that live there. And like traffic shaping like that may seem really annoying at first and really frustrating for the drivers that are just coming into that community and didn't know it was there. But for the people that live in that community, that means that there's less cars, and the cars that are there are going way slower. And so it just makes the use of that bike lane and that bike corridor so much more appealing to everyone, and it just causes me, and I'm sure others, to use it way more often. So I'm a huge fan of that bike lane, and I think all bike lanes that we're going to be putting going forward, I'm a big fan of those as well. I know that the design needs improvement from all the issues that people have brought up. I think having the huge barricades there is not probably the optimal way to do it. In other cities I've been in, the bike lanes are elevated or textured in such a way that it discourages cars from going into that space without a physical barrier. So there's other ways to accomplish that other than a really obtrusive barrier, or maybe reduction in those barriers, something along those lines. So definitely could use improvement. The other thing I'll say is, like, I don't think it's at question that bike lanes lead to healthier communities with people that like want to explore their community and see what's out there. So having a bike lane downtown, when people are traveling at bike speed or walking, they're more likely to investigate shops they didn't know existed. They're more likely to spend more time there. They're more likely to go for coffee and then stop into another shop. So it would be good to get more information from the actual businesses, like if there were surveys of people shopping there and they could just write, oh, how did you get here today? And then just have the businesses report that. I think that would be useful information. All that being said, I think like the issue of bike lane or no bike lane, I think the biggest thing that upsets me is the idea of spending more money, especially when there was a grant to enable this progression in our community, to spend more money to actually undo those things. I think that is a complete waste of time. And I think like regardless of how you feel about bike lanes, the government spending more money to undo all that work is even more egregious. So I just want to say I'm really opposed to anything along those lines. So thank you.
Thank you. Up next, is it Catherine? Catherine Morgan? Again, 5 minutes.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity. I actually moved to Lethbridge so that I could be with my grandkids and have a rich relationship and settle down here. One of the first things I did when I moved here was buy bicycle gear so that I could take them out bicycling and teach them how to do that safely. And it was a project that was really quickly put aside because I found it to be the most unsafe place that I've ever bicycled. And I have bicycled in a number of provinces and territories in our country, a number of states in the United States, and a number of countries overseas. This place took the cake, and that was a real disappointment. So we haven't done much cycling, and I was really happy to see the lanes go in and looking forward to this summer so that we could try that again. I like to teach my grandkids to be sensible, good community citizens, to take only what you need and use all you take. And it's the same thing for when we get our deer as it is for when we go shopping, as it is for if we're going to burn gas in the car rather than get on a bicycle if it's possible. The more that you enable the possibility, the more people will do it. But it seems like something else I've noticed as a newcomer here is that you can't blow your nose in this province without the issue being turned into some kind of political wedge. So I'd really like to see a continuation of this good intention and good start, do any mitigations that need to be done on bits and pieces that aren't working as well as they could have, and keep going. And for heaven's sake, let's continue to try and keep politics out of good, sensible, fact-based governance. Thanks.
Thank you. Crystal McLean. Krista McLean.
My name is Krista McLean. I live here in Lethbridge, and I'm also a business owner on 7th Street. I don't feel, besides the BRZ standing up today, no one's really talked about the businesses. And I am in agreement and share the vision of a greener and more progressive Lethbridge. I ride my bike. I do not ride it downtown. I have a 7-year-old and we bike everywhere. Sometimes the bikes have to go in our vehicle to go where we need to be, but I wasn't planning on speaking today. But I feel that the business owners and the individuals who drive downtown and come to the shops downtown, especially on 4th and 7th, aren't being taken into consideration enough. Everyone here has different wants and needs. We're all different demographics. We're all different ages. But you have a group of individuals downtown, and that these are our livelihoods. I am not here as a disgruntled business owner. We see a significant change in our traffic since last summer. I am thankful that I have a strong business and I have not seen a major reduction in our revenue. I'm very, very thankful. But I have had other business owners in my business talking about needing to get loans to pay their bills because of the compound effects of things that are happening downtown. So in regards to the bike lane, I just urge you to do so much research and really talk to the businesses of what we see and what our customers see as obstacles. We have seen people fall in front of our shop. We have moms that come with strollers, multiple children. They have to take these items, strollers and stuff, closer into traffic now. Like you can't be on 7th Street with realizing that it's just not as wide anymore. The barricades, snow removal, you can't tell me that the removal of the one barricade so people for accessibility makes any sense because half the time someone's parked there. No one can actually use that space. I just believe the execution and the placement of it wasn't the best. So all I ask of you is please do your due diligence. Please come and talk to the business owners on the streets that this is affecting to see what we can do better. I'm not neither for or against. I just believe that we could have done it better, and please don't forget to talk to us. I've been downtown for 7 years. We're not a new business. No one has ever come and talked to anyone on our street, the people that I've spoken to at least. So I please just ask for you guys to spend some time. If we lost 27 parking stalls on 7th Street, what is that turnover? How many people are we losing to come downtown? What is the revenue that is being lost? What is the walking around? My moms don't drive their bikes or ride their bikes downtown. They're coming down and then walking from street to street. So please take that all into consideration. I want a greener and more progressive Lethbridge as well, but please keep us in mind when you're going through all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Do I have any other members of the public? Okay, in the back. First in the back, and then we'll come back up to the front. Again, state your name and please keep it to 5 minutes.
My name is Brad Fiedler. I've been in Lethbridge most of my life. I own a couple of businesses, my wife and I do. One is on 7th Street, and the other one is clear across McGrath Drive. I can tell you that there's a lot of business people who would probably like to talk to you, but there's a lot of people on 7th that they're an owner-operator. They don't have time to take during the day to come down here, talk to you guys. And I'd encourage you to go talk to them. I'm not against your bike lanes. I'm against a lot of the loss of parking that they needed. I don't know that it was really necessary. Did they need a lane on both sides of the road? Is there that much bike traffic expected? Maybe they could have thought of it that way. But also I'm not downtown that much. My wife basically runs that business. I run my other one. But when they first put them in, I said, this is a danger, these curbs. When I say I'm not downtown that much, I'm gonna tell you I was there maybe 4 hours a week during the day when she was open. I personally witnessed a lady get out of her vehicle, pick up her baby, take a step out of her vehicle and trip over that first curb, stumble, and I was nowhere close to help her. She didn't hit the ground, but she stopped. Her husband got out, came around, and he said, "Are you okay?" She says, "No, I hurt my back, you need to take him." Those things are dangerous. They're a lawsuit waiting to happen. And that's something you guys should have on record. And that's all I really want to say.
Thank you. Next, Kelty. Sorry, Ms. Baird.
Thank you to the members of the SBC, city councilors, mayor, and administration for hosting this robust discussion today. Thank you also to the community members who have come to have their voices heard. For those who do not know me, my name is Kelty Baird. I'm a local business owner, and I'm a board member of the League of YQL Neighborhoods, a member of the Heart of Our City Committee, and for the last 4 years, bicycling has been my primary mode of transportation in and around Lethbridge. I began cycling in 2020 when my partner and I downsized from 2 vehicles to just 1. I purchased an e-bike as my commute at the time included Whoop Up Hill, and I felt that electronic pedal assist would be an asset to the hill climb. It certainly was. As a cyclist, we chose to switch from a car to a bike primarily for financial reasons. The maintenance, fueling, registration, and insurance of a vehicle averages the Canadian citizen $7,500 to $10,000 annually per vehicle. Note that that does not include any payments towards the purchase price of the vehicle itself, which can take years to fully repay. As a cyclist, my annual commute expenses, including maintenance, parts, and alternative transportation through transit and taxis when required, was approximately $480 in 2023. $300 of that was new winter tires. So you went from $7,500 to under $500. When my partner and I wanted to leave Lethbridge, our vehicle wasn't working. We rented a car for the weekend for $187. It's been, if you've been keeping track, that leaves my expenses just over $600 instead of the $7,500 the average Canadian spends on their vehicle. One of the biggest surprises to me when I began riding was the time it took. I had been worried that by getting out of the car and riding my bicycle, I would constantly run late. I discovered the opposite to be true. My car was subject to inefficient routes, traffic caused by congestion or collisions, and my daily commute from work to the west side in the car took anywhere from 12 to 25 minutes. The bike takes 18, 22, depending on weather and wind conditions and direction. The few additional minutes that the short trip can take is an easy compromise when the trip is as pleasant as it often is, despite the best efforts of some of the more aggressive motorized road users. More intelligent folks than I have called traveling by bike as traveling at the speed of discovery, and I could not agree more. By traveling at the cool 20 kilometers an hour, I have time to appreciate the delightful front yards, colorful front doors, and the local businesses I pass by. The lack of an enclosed cab, moving slowly through the community, having enough time to make eye contact and wave or smile at others as I pass, has transformed my commute from a dreaded task to one of the best parts of my day. There is no more efficient form of locomotion on the planet than that of a human being on a bicycle. They've actually done studies about it. In terms of quality and financial stability, equity, ecological impact, efficiency, and feeling like part of the community, the bicycle seems like a simple tool for such a massive impact. While I can sincerely empathize with the frustrations of people have experienced and expressed in terms of the design and implementation of the downtown infrastructure, I am encouraged by the reports of administration, which included the numerous civic plans, master plans, consultation pieces that were highlighted during Mr. St. Amon's presentation. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate that adding infrastructure to support people who do not have the desire to bring a full living room set with them when they travel, including an engine, chassis, and tires, it will encourage more people to cycle in the downtown core, leaving parking and traffic congestion to ease for the people who do need to drive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? There is another person. Step up. Give us your name and 5 minutes.
Great. My name is Jonas Gagnon, and I live downtown, so we've always been down there for, I don't know, they're around for 5-ish years. I love the bike lanes. I love that they're there. They've made it better for me and will make it better for me as they start to attach to other parts of the city. Right now, going to 7th, we're on 6th, so we go outside the back of our building. We're right on 7th, and we go ice cream, go down to Mayor McGrath or the Coolies or whatever. It's been amazing. Going north is terrible, and aside from going into the downtown, trying to get up north is terrible to go grocery shopping or go anywhere up there. So yeah, they've been wonderful for us. I think a couple of days ago, I almost got hit by a bike on the sidewalk because they're going faster than I am and I'm walking around. And it's things like that when people say that bikes are either in traffic or on sidewalk, that it doesn't make sense to me. I know it makes it. I'm a pedestrian usually downtown because I'm just close enough, and it doesn't make sense to me to tell bikes to make a choice between getting in the way of pedestrians or going 20 kilometers an hour on the sidewalk or trying to find space on a roadway where cars don't see you, don't like you, and can hit you very easily, and they're not going to get any damage done. So, yeah, just from the perspective of someone downtown, they've been great. They're great to see. They make the downtown feel like it's a place you want to be instead of a place where you're struggling to get across the road or just it's full of great cars and exhaust and you just want to get in, buy the thing, and get out. So I like that I can hang out downtown and see cyclists, say hi to people. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, any more? Seeing none for now, it's time to open up for questions. I guess I'll start with Mr. St. Amand, if you could come to the podium, if you don't mind. I just, I mean, we've just gone through a lot of people saying a lot of the same things that, I would say that the majority are not opposed to bike lanes, but it's the implementation right now, and I'm sure you've heard that with your group as well. So can you assure the people that are here that you've heard them and that you are in fact looking at ways to relieve what the situations may be?
Yep, so we understand a lot of the complaints that are there, especially on the accessibility front. And I might want to defer this to either Richard or Bryce. Want to talk a little bit more about the accessibility?
Yes, I think the first week or 2 weeks when the blocks went in, we could see some of the struggles, and so what we did was, within a month, I think, took up 32 blocks, right, and made each block more accessible, and we actually walked it about 3 weeks ago, and we still have some more ideas to increase the amount of spaces that still protecting the bicycles, but removing and making, at least 12 or more stalls more accessible.
And just, I mean, yeah, okay. Just to, Mr. Whoever wants to, just, we're hearing that businesses haven't heard about, or they're not consulted enough. Can you address that? That perhaps, they need to be heard more?
Does anyone else want to?
Okay, thanks.
So it's a lot of our consultation ended up, at least at the planning level when we were doing the functional plan, was fairly broad. And I definitely do hear that business consultation is something that we need to look at more deeply on future projects at the very least. It's something that we're going to have to be focusing in on a little bit more in the future. So it's a piece of the lessons learned from this project.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, I just want to add, we have heard loud and clear that there are some improvements, and Mr. Brumman has explained we have already done some changes, and the intent is over this summer and even next winter, if that's the decision of council, to continue with the bike lanes as they are, and then do some improvements. The intent is to have our team working with the BRZ and downtown businesses to see what else can be done. I know we had a few comments regarding parking and how many parking stalls were removed on 7th Avenue, but at the same time, there might be a good opportunity for us to work on the education and even trying to understand a little bit more and provide different options that can actually help all the different partners and stakeholders during this project. So we definitely are going to do that. And I know Richard and his team, as he mentioned, they have been walking through the areas, and we are planning to do some improvements over the next few months.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Well, thank you very much. And I think you asked most of the questions I was going to ask, and which is important. But so first of all, I want to thank the community for coming out and being respectful of one another. And I also want to take this opportunity. So I want to get reassurance here. I just want to sound a little redundant here. So we're going to look at the issue of, remember, when we did this is something new. We're learning from it. So we're going to look at everything from the snow removal issue, the accessibility issue, and more importantly, the consultation issue. And I appreciate, Mr. Sanchez, I think you said a few months back that we could have done a better job, and we will do a better job moving forward. And so would you say that all three of those points are correct?
Absolutely, those points are correct. And even as this project started, we had the first snowfall, and after that snowfall, we implemented many changes that resulted in a better service in terms of snow removal. And we are going to be doing that. It's a continuous improvement process where we're going to gather the feedback and then make sure that we incorporate that feedback into the next steps of the project.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. And I'm going to hold my comments for when we get to debate, which will probably be shortly here. But I do have a question in regards to the resolution, since it is my resolution, that you're going to report back in 2 years, why wouldn't we just do report back in 1 year possibly on how things are going versus the 2 years? Why was the 2 year?
So the main reason for 2 years is because we need to ensure we might get another winter where we don't have that much snow, and we want to ensure that we have enough time in order to test the different elements. But with that being said, my intention is to come back after this season and probably next year. After the summer, do a quick update. We certainly can do that. We can do a quick update to assets and infrastructure, and that will also open the opportunity for residents and the community to come back and express how the program is going on. So I don't have any problem if we want to add that there.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Councillor Dodick.
Yes, thank you. My questions are to Mr. Sanchez. And I have to say that I'm absolutely surprised, or was surprised when I got the package and looked at the package earlier this week. Not that long ago, I asked a question of administration, specifically with respect to the Active Transportation Fund and how much of that fund was required to be used for bicycle lanes. I was not given a clear answer. The answer was basically not sure. The second part of the question was if any portion of the transportation fund that was being used for the bicycle lanes, and if they were removed, would they have to be returned to the government? Again, the answer was, we're not sure. And also, there was a question at one point in time as to whether or not the Active Transportation Fund money that was used for the sidewalks could have been used for other projects. So perhaps you can answer for me why it was only a couple days ago that I found out the answer to questions that were asked at least a couple of weeks ago. Because the reality is this came as an absolute surprise to me that the $1.2 million would have to be returned to the government if in fact these were pulled out. So could you answer that question for me, sir?
Thank you for the question, and yes, I can answer the question that you're asking today. When you look at the funding sources for this project, $1.2 million was part of the Active Transportation Fund grant. This grant was for a bigger amount, but there are other projects that the funding is being used. 1.2 is being used for the specific bike lanes, and again, that came with a few conditions in terms of being protected bike lanes. And after checking, when the question was asked a few weeks ago, almost a month ago, we needed to double check with the province in order to ensure, or actually in this case is the federal government, to ensure that the grant, if we remove the assets, will need to be reallocated or returned. And we got that answer after that meeting. So we knew we were coming to this presentation. That's where we had the details as they were presented today. So it was after confirming with the funding agency that the funding was only eligible for this, and if it was being removed, it will need to be refunded or returned to them.
But the reason I asked that question is that I appreciate that, or I think you should appreciate that had I known that information, that in fact the $1.2 million was specifically for the bicycle lanes and that they had to be in place for 5 years, otherwise we'd have to return the money. You can understand that the likelihood of me asking or potentially pulling these down, if I knew that $1.2 million would have to be returned to the federal government, likely a resolution to that effect would not be brought. You do appreciate that?
I do, and as I mentioned before, at the time we didn't have the answer, and it was after the question was asked that we confirmed with the funding agency. But I do understand your point.
All right. Do you have anything in writing that will confirm that? For example, do you have the grant that talks about the $1.2 million, the 5-year requirement because I would like to see that at some point in time. Will that be available to me?
We can work and provide that information for you.
Okay. And you'd agree with me also that apart from the $1.2 million, which is the federal portion of the grant that was used for the bicycle lanes, there was also significant other money, in fact, way more than that, somewhere in the order of, $1.7 million from the Municipal Sustainability Initiative and pay-as-you-go transportation that did not require those monies, that $1.7 million, to be used for bicycle lanes. They could have been used for other community projects. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. That could have been used for any other project if it was not, in this particular case, was a matching grant and we needed to contribute a similar amount, but you're correct.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. My final comment is that for people in the audience, this is the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee. I'm not a member of it, so I don't have any voting rights at this point in time. The recommendation that is being made, that will be sponsored and voted on by the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee, will be going to council for council vote. So whatever resolution that comes out of this, or whatever decision is made here, it's not binding. It's only binding when it actually gets to council. Thank you.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to everyone who has come today. You certainly had a lot of different points to make and a lot of good information. Mr. Sanchez, when we're looking at things like this, one of the things we hear about is communication. And I do appreciate the many ways that you and your staff have reached out. There have been open houses, there have been surveys, there have been lots of ways. But every time we look at this, and across all the departments, there are people who feel that they have been missed. So one of my questions is, when we communicate with the downtown, do we reach out to building owners or business owners or both?
I'm going to start answering that, and I think probably some members of our staff that is here today can actually explain in detail what we did. But for the most part, we do door-to-door, and we go to the downtown businesses, and that's how we communicate for the most part for the majority of the projects. But I will defer that to Adam or Bryce to see if they could explain a little bit more in details on how we did it for this particular one.
So for construction notifications, we have both building owners and business owners on the list.
And so they receive a handout, like somebody goes there and actually hands them something? Is it mailed to them? Because people feel like they're missing something. I'm just wondering what they would have seen and what they would have expected.
Email mostly, letters. When we started construction on 7th Street between 3rd and 4th Ave, we did visits door to door.
Okay, so there is something that they would get in hand. And do we do that more than once? I don't know about you, but the first time I get a document, it tends to go in my round circular file. I think others may as well. So do we try more than once to reach out to them?
Oh, for sure. About every 2 weeks through construction.
Okay, perfect. And we're going to be doing more construction. We know, it's not yet on there, but we're always going to be doing more. Not only related to bike lanes, but in general, as you've listened to people, what have we picked up that might help us make this process easier, both for admin and for the public going ahead? It's the pop
maybe
test.
more engagement.
More engagement.
Like prelim.
So it's something we might work towards?
So if I can expand a little bit there, we actually had a meeting recently on a different project where we were looking at some of the lessons learned in terms of projects being completed over the last year. And even though when we try to communicate via either mailing letters or social media or get involved, the reality is sometimes people is busy and they don't pay attention until it's really in front of them. And we were talking about the opportunity in that particular project was when we were doing some preliminary assessment in the construction area, that was when people came out to ask questions and we explained what we were doing, why we were doing it. So definitely an opportunity, maybe just before the project goes, to try to do one more time, engage and remind people this is coming. And we are implementing that with a couple projects that are happening during this summer, and Woodward Drive and other areas. They were part of the community conversation. But it's something that we are going to, or we are trying to see how we can improve, and it's a matter of cost as well, because we need to be careful on how much do we spend in that time and efforts, but I think it's worth to at least to explore other options and see what we can do.
Because I have no doubt, Mr. Sanchez, you and your team are doing it, but there still seems to be a disconnect. So where are we missing out on that conversation? Of course, if your team can look into that, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, Chair Campbell, and thank you very much to our community for coming out for this. Your input is very much appreciated, and it's important for us to hear the comments that our community has to make so that we can make the best informed decisions. And thank you, Mr. Sanchez, to you and your team for your work on this. Certainly, it's difficult to have these conversations, but it is important. Councillor Croson just talked about accessibility. We've talked about snow clearing. When we talk about that kind of communication, and we're talking about accessibility and communication with businesses, are we also talking about other community groups, specifically accessibility groups, specifically moms with young children or parents with young children? Are we including those groups in these conversations as well? Because accessibility means different things to different people. And snow clearing certainly is different items of snow clearing and methods of snow clearing are required for different accessibility needs. So are we including those in our conversations as well?
Thank you for the question. And short answer, yes. We have here Mr. Drummond, who is actually one of the leads of the accessibility working group. We have a working group that has been in place for quite a few years, but he can probably expand in terms of the work is not only in one particular group, but we have probably, I will say, more than 10 stakeholders, and there will be more work that is happening with that group, and some of the projects that they have implemented in the downtown and other areas is improving those conditions for accessibility. But Richard can explain any more details if he feels I have missed anything.
Yeah, we started that group about 4 or 5 years ago, and we've had, even through the accessibility master plan, we've met with a lot of groups and listening, and it's every day, 311, they call in, we've, meet them on the streets even to talk to them about pushing audible push buttons, and surprisingly still, that people don't know that you have to push it for 3 seconds to access the audible stage. So it's a continuous thing, and we're actually right in the midst of doing a safety audit, a mobility and accessibility audit, and we've already kind of marked the cycle lanes as something to look at. And so I think in the next couple of weeks, actually, the accessibility audit group from BC are going to come down and look at that.
Okay. Thank you very much, and certainly this is part of us being an age-friendly city, which we're always also working towards. And then one other question, and Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Saint Amon, you may be able to answer this. We talked a little bit about education insofar as safe cycling. What are we doing for education on safe cycling practices, but also on safe driving practices? We covered that a bit, but can you offer more details on that?
Thanks for the question. Absolutely, we have been working with our communications team, and this morning we released the first video that is related to driver education. In this case, we partnered with LPS, and that video, as I mentioned, was released this morning, and my understanding is that we have over 3,000 views in social media in less than a day. And the plan is that in next week or the following week, there will be a phase 2, which is being oriented to the cyclist. In this case, the first one was for drivers, so they know how to deal with people using the bike lanes, and the next one it will be with the cyclist community. On top of that, there will be part of the work that Richard and the project team is working is in creating more education and awareness. And we're going to have people doing that during the summer and during the next few months.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Carlson, Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you everyone for the presentations and great discussion. It's been very, very interesting. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure who can answer this, and forgive me if I'm plowing a bit of old ground, but following up on Councillor Crowson's comments about the consultation process. And maybe I misheard, but I thought what I heard in response was all about during construction. I'm wondering what we do during the design and exploration phase. So before construction starts, yep, people need to be kept informed about what's going on. What about those stages before we get to design? Was there any consultation done with folks, businesses, members of the public in these areas?
So in the stage before we get to the detailed design and construction, we have the functional planning study. And for the functional planning study, this 4th Avenue and 7th Street were part of the cycling corridors functional planning study. These here had a couple of additional corridors as well. We had Stafford Drive, 2nd Avenue, 2A Avenue North, and the connection between Mammograph Drive and WT Hill were all part of that project. The consultation for those projects was fairly broad and largely aiming at as many people as we could get to talk to, because it was a fairly large area that it was addressing. So that was the philosophy going into that. And it seems it's, again, part of the lessons learned is to zoom in a little bit on those corridors and do more direct outreach to the people along those corridors is one of the things that we're taking away from this presentation here today, and we're going to be implementing within a few projects right away.
And thank you for that. And I'll just admit that it does sort of startle and shock me a bit. If we're doing a project that's going to, during construction, disrupt business, obviously, but could impact business owners or even residential, whoever it is, on their street, that we don't do any outreach, targeted outreach previous. So I'm glad that's a lesson learned, because that's a bit shocking to me. So thank you.
So if I can expand a little bit on the answer from Adam, as part of the presentation, we definitely talk about all these projects. They are talked during the CIP process, and that's a very high level, even before construction starts. But one of the slides that we presented today had all the different points where we did a stakeholders consultation or engagement. And I just did a quick math, and it's over close to 2,000 people attended different workshops, street pop-up events, farmers market, Works on the Street Festival, online surveys, community conversations, 2 of them. So definitely there is some work. And I think, as I mentioned before, this is good to do. I think we need to still do that. But where I think we probably can do change a little bit the approach is when construction starts. Because at the very beginning, people know that this could happen, but they don't know, or they don't have the time to pay attention until it's happening in front of them. And that's the part that I believe we can improve a little bit the process.
And thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Sanchez. But I guess my point still remains that if we've decided that, yep, a bike lane is going to go up in a certain street, I would trust from, and I'm hearing that we learned, I assumed it happened with this one, that the folks along those thoroughfares would have been involved. I assumed they had been at least some point, or at least notified. We don't all read the newspaper and say, oh yeah, bike lanes, I better go down to that just in case they put it in front of my house or business. So if that did not happen, I'm sad about that, but I trust we have learned going forward. And I kept hoping to hear that, no, we had done consultation.
And again, and it did happen. We did communicate with them before the construction, during construction, and after. And I know Mrs. Scheid is here also. She can explain. She is our liaison with the BRZ and the city, and that's part of her day-to-day job.
And if that is, I'd appreciate to hear that, because that's what I was hoping to hear, that we hadn't missed a consultation step in there. I heard from business owners today saying we had never heard a thing, and then I've heard no, we go door to door. So if you can clarify that for me, I'd appreciate that.
Sure, I'll just add a little bit to what's already been said from Bryce and Adam. So prior to me coming into this role last year, I was part of the transportation group. So I was the project manager for the 3rd Avenue reconstruction project downtown, as well as Festival Square. And I also was the lead on the 3rd Avenue beautification project for the functional plan for that as well for transportation. And while I was in that role, we had several ways that we were communicating with stakeholders, not only open house forums, but direct mail out letters. Now that's something that I'm not sure if we're doing as many direct mail outs as what we used to do. That was kind of prior to COVID. And I know that our engagement has changed a bit since COVID has come into play over the last couple of years. But since I've been with the city, we've done, I've walked into every business along 3rd Avenue from Stafford to Mayor McGrath Drive to hand out personal invitation letters to our open house when we were engaging on that project, to ensure that not only the business was aware of it, because sometimes when the mail outs go out, they go out to the building owner and not necessarily the occupant of that building. So we tried in many ways to reach out to as many people as we could. With this project in particular, I think because there was several corridors that were identified in that plan, like Adam had mentioned earlier, there maybe wasn't quite as targeted on specific building owners and businesses when the functional plan was completed. But I did take this project to the open house in January last year prior to construction starting. And Bryce, like he mentioned, went around door to door and handed out letters to the businesses. We also worked very closely with the BRZ to help them communicate out and to have them help us communicate out as best we could. Now, sometimes I think it's very challenging. Like a lot of the business owners have said, they're very busy. They work the front end of their store, so they can't always get to these types of things. And I think that's where it would be really vital for them to be talking to their representatives, either the Heart of Our City Committee or the BRZ, if they're unable to attend some of these events. Certainly, we would be open to receiving emails and like concerns and those types of things when we are engaging on things. I'm currently engaging on a few different projects right now. I've hand-delivered letters, sent out emails. We have stuff not only at the open houses, but we're trying to put stuff up on our Get Involved Lethbridge site so that people have the opportunity to comment and provide input online on that forum as well if they're unable to attend the events. Typically, most of our surveys and comment periods will be up for 2 to 3 weeks, so people have an opportunity. And most times when we have projects up where we're looking for feedback from the public, we do send a PSA out through communications to let people know that they have the opportunity to comment and provide feedback. So I know it sometimes is difficult, and I have to agree with Mr. Sanchez that sometimes I think we're in a society where we're bombarded with information on a daily basis, and until it's right out front of your door and impacting you directly, that it might not be easy to kind of comprehend that, you know, this project might impact me. And I know specifically with the bike lane project, it was a project that was approved to be moved forward years prior. So there was probably engagement done at that time. It was delayed by 2 years because 3rd Avenue reconstruction was happening and transportation didn't want to shut down 2 adjacent corridors downtown at the same time.
and further disrupt the parking and the businesses. And in that time was when it was discovered that the water main replacement needed to happen and that there was a grant available to help fund the project. So if that helps a little bit, I was the PM on that project before I moved into this role. But in this role, I'm actively working with all of our different infrastructure departments and that to try and help get communication out to the businesses for anything happening in the downtown and the warehouse district and the area that the heart of our city really commits to serving.
And thank you. That does give me some comfort that consultation was done, but we may realize it may have been some years ago when the CIP was actually approved, and so people may have forgotten about it. So thank you for that. Mr. Chair, can I have one final question, then I think I'm done.
Go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. If I can ask, is Miss Amy's still around?
She has left. She has left.
She has left. Then I have no more questions, Mr. Chair. You'll be relieved.
I am. Councillor Dodick.
Yes, I heard of a lot about the consultation on 3rd Avenue South and some generalities with respect to the bike lanes. Reference was made that letters were provided to the folks affected, I'm assuming, on 7th Avenue, 7th Street and 4th Avenue. What I would like to ask administration to provide me in the not-too-distant future is a copy of the letter or letters that were sent and the dates and who these letters were provided to. Can that be done?
Yes, that can be done.
Thank you.
Councillor Croson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you again, Mr. Sanchez, for all the information. I just wanted to, again, bring up the idea that I know other communities do of simply putting signs around where the project's going to go. I know there is, again, a cost to it, but I've seen their effectiveness in other communities, and I wonder if that isn't something we should be considering, because those are much harder to throw in the garbage than I do with other things that come into my house. Yeah. So just wanted to give that as a possible suggestion.
Is something that definitely can be explored. I know we currently have some portable signs, electronic signs that the transportation department uses every time there is a major project or community engagement or any other activity. We have those available, and I was also reminded by our comms department that we also issue the PSAs and news releases and media, so we definitely will need to look into that more and ensure that we cover that gap that currently exists.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I see no other questions. With that, I have a resolution from Councillor Parker. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends City Council direct 1, administration return to an Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting in summer of 2025 with an update on the downtown bike lane usage, and 2, administration to return to an Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee meeting in summer of 2026 with a report on the downtown bike lane usage, safety, and other issues encountered, and any modifications to address issues. Councillor Parker.
First of all, is there any questions before I open up my debate on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll just move into my debate then.
Go ahead.
Thank you. First and foremost, this, whatever happens in this vote, this will be sent to council for final ratification. I think that should be noted here. There are certain members of council that are around this table right here that I appreciate them being here and asking the questions, but they won't have the privilege to vote on it at the SBC level, but they will have an opportunity to vote at the council level. And so I think, first of all, I want to thank everyone once again for coming. This has been a divisive issue, and I shouldn't say a controversial issue, just it's an issue of change, and people don't always like change, and sometimes is change good for just for the sake of change? Well, that's debatable. And I want to, first of all, say thank you to Councillor Dodick. Councillor Dodick took a lot of heat for bringing a resolution forward, but I think he represented a lot of voices in the community in regards to the bike lanes and what are we doing in the future, how did we get to this point? And Councillor Dodick took a lot of heat on that, and it's sad that happened, but we did address that issue, and I won't discuss it anymore. I think he's okay now. I know he has thick skin. I was on council, I've been on council a long time. Some people say a little too long. But anyway, I remember a time when we decided to do a pedestrian bridge across the river. It was Coalbanks Trail. And I was asked to be the chairperson on that. And at that time, we had a citizen group of citizens, a diverse group of people, seniors, middle-aged folks, youth, bikers, hikers, and all that. And it was a really good way of doing things in that you had a good cross-section of the community coming together to make a decision. And I remember there were some colleagues on council at that time, and I'll say one of them was Councillor Petta. If you remember Councillor Petta, he was very much against this idea. And he said, well, no one's ever going to use it. Why are we going to do it? And I'm not going to say he wasn't visionary and all that, but I think he thought, like if some people in the community, they just didn't want to see that. Why do we already have a bridge right on there? We already have something close to the cars and all that. So we felt, you know what? We have an opportunity to do this and to do it right. And it's hard to believe at that time, I think we did it for under $2 million. And I think if it was to be done today, it would probably be $25 million. But it was a huge success. And it was something that the city took on because we had a vision. And I think collectively as a council later on, we felt that it was the right decision, and it's very well used. And I think a lot of people are very proud of that pedestrian bridge in our community. But the point is, it was something different, and there was pushback, and we learned from it. But at the same time, I think it was a success. I think the mistakes that were made in regards to, and I'm going to use the word mistakes, is I don't think we did enough community consultation on this. I know you did a very good job in explaining and all that, but at the end of the day, people really don't care until it actually happens. And it's like that in anything in life. And most often people won't call City Hall until their garbage does not get picked up. But otherwise, they live their daily lives. They watch American Idol, they take their kids to soccer, they eat pizza. But until something directly impacts them, then they have their say. And quite often, most people will complain before they give compliments. And that's just human nature. Now, do I think the bike lanes are an amazing idea? I don't know yet. I don't know yet because I don't think that it's been around long enough. But I can tell you one thing, biking has changed. I remember as a kid going up that West Side Hill, we always had like a friendly bet around our friends, can you go up the West Side Hill before you have to get off the bike? We had maybe a 12 speed or a 15 speed, but biking has changed a lot. You see now like an 81-year-old pedaling up that bike so fast that you don't even know what they're doing because the onset of e-bikes, electric bikes, whatever you want to call them. So bikes are becoming more and more popular, not only in Lethbridge, but in North America, if not the whole world. And there were some really good points in regards to the cost of bikes, the usage of bikes. And I remember a former infrastructure steward, Mr. Bud Hogewide, said, people don't use transit or bikes a lot in the city because we're really good at building roads in our community. And it's true, we build a lot of good roads and we have a really good way of getting around from point A to point B. Some will debate that, but I think we can still get anywhere in Lethbridge in 15 to 20 minutes. But I think we can't have blinders on that the bikes are the future, inflation, the cost and everything, but it's hard to believe bikes are close to $6,000, some of the bikes that you see, but that's a conversation for another time. But I think that we need to give these bike lanes an opportunity and a chance to see if they are a success. We were told by Mr. Sanchez and his team that there are some issues in regards to snow removal, accessibility, and they're addressing these issues. And they said that not only today, but they have also said it in the last month or so, if not the last few months, that they're doing. This is something new in Lethbridge, these bike lanes and all that. But I think it will be a success when we address these issues. So I think the community needs to be patient in that we are going to address these issues and concerns because there was a lot of good comments on both sides of the issue today. I couldn't argue with any of the facts that you folks said. You guys all made a really good point about both sides, from a business perspective, from the heart of our city, or not the downtown BRZ, but from the users as well, bike users and people that don't use the bikes. So I thought that this resolution would be good in that we're going to get an update from Mr. Sanchez in a year in regards to it, in regards to how we're doing. But I also believe that Mr. Sanchez and his team are not going to have their ears closed off. They're going to be listening to more concerns as the weeks and days and months go ahead, and they're going to adjust things as need be. They're not going to need to come back to council to get those approved. You'll make the changes as needed. And in 2 years, when we have a full 2 years of usage under our belt, we'll find out exactly how successful this has been. But I think it's important that our administration know that moving forward, when we do bike lanes in other areas of this community, that we really do a better job of consultation and listening to the user groups, not only the bike users, but the people that actually live in those areas and how it's going to impact them, because I think that's very important. So I asked for my members of the SBC, I know there's only 3 here, Councillor Carlson, myself, and yourself, Mr. Campbell, but I'd ask for this, for your support, and I'm looking forward to hearing the debate from my colleagues when it does go to the council table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Deputy Mayor Carlson, have you a question or are you in for debate?
Thank you. Just perhaps if I can, and it just sort of triggered to me that we did ask a lot of questions. I know my colleague, Councillor Dodick, did ask for some documentation to be provided. Does that need to be in the resolution, or will all of council see those things that Councillor Dodick asked for? Things like the letters that were sent, et cetera, the agreements.
Mr. Sanchez?
We will send that to all council, so council has the same information that is being sent to Councillor Dodick.
Thank you. I just wasn't sure if Councillor Dodick, because he's not a member of the committee, needed that in the resolution or not, but it sounds like it is being done. Further, I fully support this resolution. I think it is early days with the bike lanes. I know they've caused some challenges. We've made some changes. I'd like to see them in place for a couple of years before we revisit the issue. And I think they're going to be a real boon to our community. I'm still looking forward to the connection between 7th Avenue to 7th Street, because that's now the only missing link that gives me a bit of pause with my cycling. So I'm looking forward to that being completed. Thank you.
And I'll be supporting this resolution. Of course, this will be going to council as well, but I think this has been a great day to find out all sides of this situation. And I think it's very abundantly clear that most people are not against bike lanes at all. It was a lot of the process that went through it. It's with the need for some changes, which I think administration has heard, and I do look forward to hearing back on what I think will be a success on bike lanes. Councillor Parker. Question's been called. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll go to our next item on the agenda, and it is a submission from the Indoor Court Multipurpose Space and Audit Analysis. Who do we have? Who is? Sorry. Yes. No presentation. Mr. Grindle is here. Are there any questions? And I see some from Councillor Croson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Grindle. You got to sit through a long time before yours came up on the agenda. The joint use agreement is between us, the Public School Board, the Holy Spirit Catholic School Board. Should École Vérandré or any other of the schools be considered as we move forward looking into the agreement?
Thank you for the question, and yes, good afternoon, Council. We actually have a joint use agreement in place with the Francophone school division as well.
And so it won't be looped together, we'll keep the separate ones?
The other higher levels than me have said that that's probably the best course. They are up, they're not synced in terms of timeline or any of those things, and they've just now recently joined us at the General Joint Use Committee now as well, so there's a lot more overlap, but they had been separated out until then.
But will there be equity between those various organizations?
Yes, they have the same opportunity. It's exact same mirrored agreement, just 2 separate agreements.
And this is being done at the administrative level. Of course, Councillor Parker and I do sit at the governance level. Is there anything we are required to do, or will this be at this time just at the admin level?
Yeah, in my conversations with our director, I think at this time is just some cosmetic things that we're looking at, updating our facility lists and some of the language processes, those types of things. So nothing that I think would be at a higher level as of yet.
And last question, I know there is some concern from the school board about, they need information back from us on one of the gyms quite quickly. Is this tying in with that? Is that a separate process?
Separate matter that will come at a future time.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair.
Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one question. I reviewed the report, and I'm sorry I've been a bit distracted lately. But I did review the report. I couldn't see any mention. I saw rec and culture in there, but it was it was mostly focused on parks and gymnasiums, really. City facilities were mentioned. Is there a list in the package somewhere of what city facilities are included in the joint use agreement?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Not specifically in the report that I provided. It is in the joint use handbook. I believe we forwarded the agreement, but the handbook might not have been part of that. I can't recall.
It was not. I was looking for it. In fact, in the agreement, it directed me to read attachment A, I believe, if I recall.
Yes.
And I had no attachment A. It was just a blank blue page. Because I know some of the concerns are that we include several city facilities. I'm not sure how those are handled. And I know that since we've done this agreement, I think it was actually Mayor Dodik's signature on the agreement. If it looked like a doctor's signature, Reiko, so I just assumed it was yours.
He's not here.
Yeah, he's gone.
I'll pass it on.
And so I know that things have changed. One of the joint use facilities is the Yates Theatre. I know that since that time, several of the schools have built themselves theaters. And I'm just wondering how those are being handled now. If there's reciprocal use, how things work. Is that going to be part of the upcoming review?
Yes, I think that's exactly the intent, is the cosmetic changes and updates to the facility lists. Apologize for not including Schedule A, and I will be sure that that gets circulated here as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No other questions, and while we have Deputy Mayor, this is your resolution. Be it resolved that the Assets and Infrastructure Standing Policy Committee recommends that City Council direct administration to work with the school divisions to update the existing joint use agreements to better reflect the current operating processes and include updated language and facility lists. Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unless there's anything further, just thank Mr. Grindle for the report, and hope we can get our colleagues to agree to proceed to update.
The question has been called. All in favor? That is done. Thank you very much, and thank you all. You're all gone. Bye-bye. All right. We are adjourned.